Disclaimer: this content is only for mature audiences. Viewer discretion is advised. The rain had just stopped tapping against the windowpane, and the soft sound of a jazz record played in the background. It was one of those cozy, quiet evenings in a small New York apartment where everything felt just right, or so it seemed. Alina, a striking woman with warm blue eyes and soft blonde hair, was curled up on the couch in her husband David's oversized hoodie, thinking the night would end in peace. But marriage, even one full of love, always holds a few surprises. Alina had moved from Russia to the United States 5 years ago. She was elegant but unpretentious, the kind of woman who could make a home feel like a sanctuary. David, her American husband, was calm and deeply affectionate, the kind of man who spoke more with his eyes than with words. Their relationship had always been passionate, but tonight something was different. He wasn't ready for the night to be over, even when she thought she was. They had just finished dinner, her favorite creamy mushroom pasta, paired with a chilled glass of white wine. Alina had smiled, touched his hand across the table, and felt the warmth of home. She was full, satisfied, ready to slip into her favorite pajamas and call it a night. But David looked at her with that gaze she knew too well, the one that told her he wanted more than just quiet cuddles. "What are you thinking?" she asked him gently, her voice barely louder than the music. David leaned in, brushing a strand of hair behind her ear, and whispered, "That I can never get enough of you." Her heart fluttered, but her body was tired. Still, something about the way he looked at her made her pause. There was tenderness, but also intensity, and it made her wonder, how often do we misjudge what our partner truly needs? In that moment, she realized, love isn't always about being ready, but sometimes about being open. And that's where our story truly begins, not with fireworks, but with the quiet spark between a husband and wife learning each other all over again, even after years of being together. Their night turns into something unexpected, filled with laughter, memories, and a gentle tension that builds with every moment. You'll feel like you're right there with them, in that small apartment where emotions run deep and love is never boring. But just when Alina starts to give in to the moment, something interrupts, an unexpected knock at the door that changes everything. What happens next? Is it a secret from the past, or something that will test the very core of their love? Let us know in the comments. Have you ever been in a moment where love asked for more than you expected? Would you open the door, or stay in that warm, uncertain moment? Vote in the poll above and drop your thoughts below. Your opinion might shape the next part of the story. Stay tuned. Alina froze for a moment, her hand instinctively gripping David's. The knock at the door wasn't loud, just a soft, deliberate tapping, almost too careful. They looked at each other, silently trying to guess who could possibly show up unannounced on such a quiet, intimate night. David stood slowly, his eyes still locked with hers, as if silently promising everything was fine. But she felt a flutter in her chest, not just from the surprise, but from something deeper, an unsettled feeling she couldn't explain. As he moved toward the door, Alina sat up straighter, the warmth of the room suddenly feeling distant. She glanced at her phone. No messages. No missed calls. Just the sound of the rain returning, light and steady, like a drum roll to something unknown. She pulled the blanket tighter around her, trying to calm herself. Maybe it was a neighbor. Maybe someone needed help. But part of her didn't want to break the quiet moment they'd been sharing. David opened the door slightly, just enough to peek out, and said something softly she couldn't hear. His body blocked her view. A few quiet words were exchanged before he gently closed the door again, locking it this time. When he turned around, his expression had shifted, still calm, but more guarded. She waited for him to speak, but he just walked back slowly and sat beside her again, a bit closer than before. "Who was it?" she asked, trying to sound casual, though her heartbeat betrayed her. "No one we know," he said. "Just a delivery mistake." But something in his tone didn't feel right. Not exactly a lie, but not the full truth either. Alina didn't push. Instead, she rested her head against his shoulder, but her mind was now racing. Something had changed, subtly but clearly. The comfort of the night had turned into something else, a slow-burning curiosity mixed with a trace of worry. And David, who usually shared everything with her, was quiet. As the jazz track ended and another one began, she whispered, "You're holding something back." He kissed her forehead gently, but didn't reply. And just like that, their evening, which had been filled with playful romance and quiet love, now held something unspoken between them. What do you think was behind the door? Could a simple knock really change everything? Tell us in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe for part 2. Alina tried to fall back into the rhythm of their evening, but something felt off. David was sitting close, his arm around her, but his energy had shifted. His touch was warm, yet distant, like his mind was somewhere else. She didn't say anything, just leaned into him and let the silence fill the space. But the silence wasn't peaceful anymore, it was loaded. She turned her head slightly and looked at him, studying his profile. He looked calm on the surface, but she could see the tightness in his jaw. She reached for his hand, holding it gently. "Are you sure you're okay?" she asked, softly. He hesitated, then gave a small nod. "Yeah. Just tired." It didn't sit right with her. David never hid things from her, not like this. They were that kind of couple who talked about everything, even the small things that didn't matter. But now, sitting in the same room, something unspoken was stretching between them, pulling at the trust they had built over the years. Later that night, as David took a shower, Alina's curiosity got the better of her. She walked over to the front door and looked through the peephole, even though she knew no one was there. Then, on impulse, she opened the door slightly and glanced down. A small envelope was lying just outside the doorframe, thin, unmarked, almost easy to miss. Her breath caught in her throat. She picked it up and stared at it. No name. No logo. No handwriting. Just a plain, white envelope. Before she could open it, she heard the water stop. Quickly, she slipped the envelope inside a drawer in the hallway table and returned to the living room. Her heart was pounding, and not from fear, but from the sudden realization that something private had just entered their space. And David had decided to keep it from her. When he came back, towel over his shoulder, he smiled at her, the same familiar smile she had fallen in love with. But now, it felt like a mask. As the night deepened, the gap between them widened. They talked about a new series they wanted to watch, about her work at the art gallery, about his office deadlines. But underneath every word was a growing question neither of them asked. What was in that envelope? And why had he lied about it? Could a marriage so filled with love hide a side neither of them had seen before? What do you think? Should Alina open the envelope or wait for David to tell her the truth? Drop your thoughts in the comments. If you were in her shoes, what would you do? Let us know your theories below, maybe your prediction will be right in the next episode. The next morning, Alina woke early, sunlight slipping through the curtains and casting soft light across the room. David was still asleep, his hand loosely resting on her waist. She looked at him, peaceful in sleep, and for a moment she wished she could pretend nothing had changed. But the envelope in the drawer was like a whisper in her mind, constant and pressing. She quietly slipped out of bed and tiptoed to the hallway. Her fingers hesitated on the drawer handle. She didn't want to believe there were secrets between them. But the uncertainty was eating at her. She pulled it open slowly, took the envelope, and held it in her hands. Still no writing. Still completely blank. Her heart raced. She knew that opening it would change something. But wasn't that change already happening? Before she could decide, she heard the bedroom door creak behind her. She quickly slipped the envelope under a book on the shelf and turned. David stood there, watching her. His face was unreadable. Looking for something? He asked, his voice quiet but steady. She shook her head too quickly. No. Just, couldn't sleep. He nodded slowly, walking past her toward the kitchen. Want coffee? Alina watched him move like nothing was wrong, but her thoughts were a storm. She followed him, sat at the small kitchen table, and studied him as he poured water into the coffee maker. Something about his silence unsettled her more than any argument could. There was distance now. Not physical, but something deeper. Over breakfast, they exchanged light conversation, but every sentence felt rehearsed. He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. She laughed, but she felt like a stranger inside her own home. The air between them held something unspoken. That evening, she decided she couldn't take it anymore. She waited until David stepped out to pick up something from the store. As soon as he left, she opened the envelope. Inside, there was a single photograph. It was an old picture, grainy and faded, but unmistakable. It showed David with a woman she didn't recognize. Not just standing together, but close. Too close. The date scribbled on the back was from 2 years ago. A time when they were already married. Alina's hands trembled. The woman wasn't anyone from their current life. Not someone from work. Not a friend. She looked foreign, younger, and familiar in a way that sent a chill down her spine. And now a new question hung in the air: who had sent the photo? She heard keys at the door. She quickly slipped the photo back into the envelope and returned it to the drawer just as David walked in, a grocery bag in his hand. He smiled again. "Miss me?" She nodded. But her voice was caught in her throat. What's the story behind the photo? Is David hiding a part of his past, or is someone trying to break them apart? Let us know what you think in the comments. Do you trust David, or is something darker unfolding? David placed the grocery bag on the counter and casually began unpacking. Alina forced herself to stay composed, pretending nothing had changed, even though her mind was spinning. The photo in the envelope felt like a weight in her chest. Every movement David made now seemed suspicious, every word he spoke laced with a hidden meaning. Still, she smiled, nodded, asked him how the traffic was, playing her role like nothing had been shattered. As he poured 2 glasses of juice, she tried to study him. Was this the man who held her hand through every tough time? Who brought her tea when she was sick, who remembered her favorite Russian lullaby and hummed it to her when she missed home? Or was he someone else now, someone she never really knew? That night, after dinner, Alina stood at the balcony, the city lights reflecting in her eyes. David joined her quietly, wrapping his arms around her from behind. "You've been quiet today," he said gently. She nodded, her voice soft. "Just tired." But even her lies didn't sound convincing anymore. Just then, David's phone buzzed on the kitchen counter. He didn't rush to it. He stayed there with her, arms wrapped like nothing was wrong. But Alina's curiosity had already turned into suspicion. As he went to the bathroom, she glanced at the screen. A message from an unknown number. Did she see the photo yet? Her heart stopped. The message disappeared seconds later. Auto-delete. Alina sat down slowly, her body numb. It wasn't just a forgotten memory from the past. It wasn't just some old mistake. Someone was actively trying to expose something, or someone was warning her. When David returned, she tried to hide the tremble in her hands. "Who was that message from?" she asked suddenly, not giving herself time to hesitate. David froze. "What message?" "The one that said, 'Did she see the photo yet?'" He stared at her for a long second, then walked to the counter, picked up the phone, and looked at it. "I didn't see anything." Alina's eyes narrowed. "Don't lie to me." He sighed deeply, placing the phone down. "It's complicated." She stepped back, her voice cracking. "Try me." He looked torn, conflicted in a way she hadn't seen before. "There's something I've been protecting you from. But it's not what you think." Before she could respond, the doorbell rang again. Both of them turned to look at the door, tension thick in the air. Neither of them moved. Alina whispered, "If that's who sent the photo, we're not ready for what's coming." Who's on the other side of the door this time? Is it someone from David's past, or someone connected to Alina in ways she never expected? Drop your theories in the comments. Should Alina open the door, or walk away? The sound of the doorbell hung heavy in the air. Alina and David stood in silence, both caught between fear and the need for truth. After a long moment, Alina took a step forward. "I'll get it," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. David didn't stop her this time. He just watched, his face unreadable. She opened the door slowly. A woman stood there, mid-30s, with deep green eyes and dark hair pulled back into a simple braid. She looked exhausted, nervous, but calm. In her hand, she held a second envelope. She met Alina's eyes and said, "You don't know me, but I think it's time you did." David stepped forward immediately, his voice sharp. "Natalie, this isn't the time." "No, David," the woman interrupted, her gaze still fixed on Alina. "She deserves to know the truth. All of it." Alina's fingers curled around the edge of the door. "Who are you?" The woman took a breath. "I'm David's ex-fiancée. The photo. I sent it. Not to hurt you. But to warn you." Alina's world tilted. "Why now?" "Because someone's been threatening me. I thought it was David. But now, I'm not sure." David stepped between them. "I ended things with Natalie years ago. Before I met you. But someone's been manipulating all of this." Natalie handed the envelope to Alina. "Inside are copies of messages, threats, and evidence. Someone's been watching both of us." Alina opened it with trembling hands. Inside were printed texts, surveillance photos, and a name she didn't expect, her old roommate from college. Someone she hadn't spoken to in years. The same person who introduced her to David. A chill ran down her spine. Why would she do this? David shook his head slowly. "Because she wanted to be with me. And when I chose you, she couldn't let it go." As the puzzle pieces finally fit together, Alina felt a strange wave of relief, followed by something colder. "So everything we felt was real?" David took her hands. "Yes. Every part of it." And just as they embraced, the apartment lights flickered, followed by a message alert on David's phone. Alina glanced at the screen. A new number. One line. "You still think this is over? Let us know in the comments, did you expect that twist? Who do you think is still pulling the strings?" David stared at the message glowing on his phone screen while Alina stood frozen, her heart racing all over again. The words, "You still think this is over," felt like a shadow passing through the room. But this time, something inside her had changed. She wasn't just reacting, she was ready to face the truth. Over the next few days, they worked together to piece everything together. With Natalie's evidence and a bit of digital tracing, they uncovered the full extent of the deception. Alina's old college roommate, Marina, had created fake email accounts, edited photos, and even sent messages pretending to be David. It wasn't just jealousy. It was obsession rooted in betrayal. Marina had loved David silently for years, and when he fell for Alina, something inside her broke. Alina confronted Marina over the phone, not with anger, but with clarity. "I won't let you twist our story anymore. Whatever you were trying to break is already stronger now." Marina didn't deny it. She just hung up. And just like that, the storm that had crept silently into their lives began to pass. David and Alina took a few days away from the city, renting a quiet cabin near a lake. The silence between them wasn't awkward anymore, it was healing. They talked late into the night, revisiting old memories, rediscovering parts of each other that had been buried under everyday life. For the first time in weeks, they laughed without holding back. Back in New York, Natalie left the city, thanking Alina before she did. "I never meant to come between you," she said. "But I'm glad you know the truth now." Alina nodded. Truth always finds a way. Life slowly returned to normal. The apartment felt like home again. David deleted the burner messages, and they changed their numbers. The photo, once a source of doubt, now lived in a drawer, not as a reminder of pain, but of how they chose to grow through it. One night, curled up together under a soft blanket, Alina whispered, "You know, I thought love meant never facing something like this." David smiled, brushing his fingers through her hair. Real love means facing it, and still choosing each other. They kissed, not out of passion, but with a deeper knowing. Their bond had shifted, matured. They were still the same people, but more honest, more aware, and somehow, even closer. So, what do you think? Did justice find its way? Would you forgive someone if your trust was tested like Alina's? Tell us in the comments, did this ending feel right to you? And would you want a sequel? Hit like if you enjoyed the journey and don't forget to subscribe for more human love stories with a twist.